I never thought a simple grocery trip would become the beginning of something that would quietly change my heart. It was an ordinary Tuesday evening. The kind of evening that feels heavy for no clear reason. The sky was fading into soft shades of orange and grey, and I was sitting in my car outside the local supermarket, staring at the entrance like I was trying to gather energy just to walk inside. My husband had texted me earlier that day. "Working late. Don't wait up." That wasn't unusual. Over the past few years, those words had become routine. Our marriage wasn't dramatic. There were no screaming fights. No broken plates. No shocking betrayals. Just silence. The kind of silence that slowly builds between two people who once couldn't stop talking. I adjusted my scarf, picked up my purse, and stepped out of the car. Inside, the supermarket lights were bright and almost comforting. Rows of fresh vegetables, the quiet hum of refrigerators, the faint scent of baked bread from the back section, everything felt normal. Safe. I grabbed a basket and started picking up the usual items. Tomatoes. Onions. Milk. Bread. Things I could buy with my eyes closed because I had done it so many times before. But that evening, something was different. When I reached the checkout counter, I saw him. He wasn't someone I had seen before. Tall. Neatly groomed. Calm posture. He wore a clean light grey uniform with a name tag that read, Ion. He looked up as I placed my basket down. And he smiled. Not the forced, robotic smile that employees give customers. It was warm. Natural. Almost gentle. "Good evening," he said, his voice soft but confident. For a second, I forgot to respond. "Good evening," I replied, hoping my voice didn't reveal the strange flutter in my chest. He scanned my items carefully, asking if I needed a bag, if I found everything easily. Basic questions. Normal customer service. But he looked at me when he spoke. Not through me. Not past me. At me. It had been a long time since I felt that. When he handed me the receipt, our fingers brushed lightly. It was accidental. Harmless. But my heart reacted like it wasn't. "Take care," he said. Two simple words. Yet somehow, they followed me all the way home. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My husband came home late, quietly changed, and slipped into bed without saying much. He was tired. I understood that. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about the supermarket. About the smile. About the way someone had looked at me like I wasn't invisible. The next week, I needed only 2 items. But I still went. And when I walked in, I found myself scanning the checkout counters before even picking up a basket. There he was. This time, when I approached, he recognized me. "The usual vegetables?" he asked with a small playful smile. I blinked in surprise. "You remember?" He shrugged lightly. "You bought the same things last Tuesday." I laughed. It wasn't a big moment. But it felt personal. Special. As the weeks passed, our conversations became slightly longer. He would ask how my day was. I would ask how his shift was going. Sometimes he would step out from behind the counter to help me find something in the aisles. We talked about small things at first, the weather, how crowded the store gets on weekends, how prices keep changing. Then one day, while helping me pick out apples, he asked, "Do you come here alone every time?" The question caught me off guard. "Yes," I said casually. "My husband works late." He nodded slowly. "You must get tired handling everything." It wasn't pity in his voice. It was understanding. And that was dangerous. Because understanding is intimate in ways people don't realize. At home, conversations had become practical. "Did you pay the electricity bill?" "What's for dinner?" "I'm tired." But at the supermarket, for those few minutes, I felt heard. Seen. Alive. Months passed. I started dressing a little more carefully before grocery trips. Nothing dramatic. Just small effort. A nicer scarf. Light makeup. A different perfume. I told myself it was harmless. I was just enjoying friendly conversations. That's all. One evening, the store was almost empty. Soft music played in the background. The lights felt warmer than usual. After billing my items, he leaned slightly forward and asked quietly, "Are you happy?" The question hit me harder than I expected. It wasn't something customers get asked. It wasn't something my own husband had asked in a long time. "I'm fine," I replied automatically. He studied my face for a brief second. "Sometimes," he said gently, "people say they're fine because it's easier than explaining." My throat tightened. I forced a smile and thanked him before leaving. But in the car, I didn't start the engine right away. I just sat there. Because he was right. I wasn't unhappy enough to leave. But I wasn't happy enough to feel alive either. And that in-between space is lonely. Very lonely. I never planned to feel anything. I never walked into that supermarket thinking I would start looking forward to someone's smile. But human hearts don't always ask for permission. They react. They respond. They search for warmth when they feel cold. 1 year ago, I was just a married woman buying groceries. Now, every Tuesday evening felt like something I waited for. Not because I needed milk. Not because I needed vegetables. But because, for 10 or 15 minutes, someone made me feel important. And I told myself it was innocent. Just conversations. Just smiles. Just small moments. But deep inside, I knew something was quietly growing. Something soft. Something dangerous. And I had no idea how much it would eventually cost me. I wish I could say it happened suddenly. That one dramatic moment changed everything. But that wouldn't be true. It happened slowly. Quietly. Like water seeping through cracks you pretend not to see. By the 3rd month, I wasn't just visiting the supermarket. I was visiting him. And that realization alone should have scared me. Every Tuesday evening became intentional. I started planning dinner around it. If we didn't need groceries, I would remember something small we had run out of. Eggs. Dish soap. Coffee. Excuses. That's what they were. And I knew it. But knowing doesn't always stop you. When I walked into the store now, my eyes searched for him before anything else. If he was at the counter, my heart would settle. If he wasn't, my chest felt strangely heavy. One evening, he wasn't there. I tried to act normal as another cashier scanned my items, but I felt restless. Disappointed. As I stepped outside, I heard a voice behind me. Leaving without saying hi. I turned. He was standing near the entrance, holding a box he had probably just carried from storage. He wasn't in his grey uniform this time, just a fitted black shirt with sleeves slightly rolled up. And for a second, I forgot how to breathe. "You weren't at the counter," I said, trying to sound casual. "So you noticed," he replied, a teasing warmth in his eyes. That moment lingered longer than it should have. We stood there, just outside the sliding doors, cars passing, people walking by, but it felt like the world had softened around us. That night, he asked for my number. Not directly. It happened naturally. "I sometimes check if new products are in stock," he said. "You always ask about that almond milk." I smiled. So, it would be easier to just text you when it arrives. It was practical. Reasonable. Innocent. At least that's how I justified it. When I typed my number into his phone, my hands trembled slightly. I told myself it was nothing. But deep down, I knew I had just stepped onto thin ice. The first message came 2 days later. "Almond milk is finally back in stock." I stared at my phone longer than necessary before replying. Thank you. You didn't have to remember. I wanted to. Those 3 words did something to me. Because it had been a long time since someone wanted to remember something about me. Our messages stayed light at first. How was your day? Long shift today. Traffic is terrible. Normal. Safe. But safety fades when comfort grows. Soon, the messages became more personal. One night, around 11:30 p.m., my phone buzzed while I was lying next to my sleeping husband. Are you awake? He texted. I hesitated. Then replied. Yes. That conversation lasted 2 hours. He told me about his dream of opening his own small grocery store one day. About how he worked double shifts to support his mother. About how sometimes he felt invisible to the world. I found myself telling him things I hadn't said out loud in years. That sometimes I felt lonely in my own marriage. That silence can be louder than arguments. That being married doesn't always mean being understood. You deserve to feel seen, he wrote. My chest tightened. Because I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. Weeks passed. The emotional connection deepened. And that's when it became dangerous. We never touched beyond accidental brushes. We never met outside the supermarket. But emotionally? I was drifting. One rainy evening, the store was nearly empty. Thunder rolled softly outside. After checking out my groceries, he didn't hand me the receipt immediately. Instead, he looked at me. Really looked at me. You look tired, he said gently. I am. From what? I opened my mouth to give the usual answer. But instead, I said the truth. From pretending. The silence between us felt charged. He stepped slightly closer, not enough to cross a visible line, but enough for me to feel his presence. You don't have to pretend with me, he said quietly. And that was the moment. The moment everything shifted. Because emotional intimacy is more powerful than physical closeness. It wraps around your heart before you even realize it. That night, I went home feeling restless. My husband was watching TV, barely glancing up when I entered. How was the store? He asked absently. Fine, I replied. Fine. That word again. Later, while he slept, I scrolled through my messages. There was a new one. I keep thinking about what you said. My heart pounded. About what? I typed. About pretending. I stared at the screen. Then he sent another message. You don't seem happy. I swallowed. I don't know what I am, I replied honestly. The typing dots appeared. Disappeared. Then appeared again. If things were different, would you choose differently? That question stole my breath. I knew what he was asking without him saying it directly. I should have stopped it there. I should have drawn a clear line. But instead, I typed something that changed everything. I don't know. That was enough. Not a confession. Not a promise. But enough to open a door. Over the next few months, the emotional tension intensified. When I entered the supermarket, the air felt heavier. When our eyes met, there was something unspoken. We began standing closer. Our conversations lowered into softer tones. Sometimes our hands brushed deliberately now, lingering half a second longer than necessary. It still wasn't physical. Not technically. But my heart? My heart was no longer fully mine. I found myself smiling at my phone during the day, waiting for his messages, replaying his words in my head. And then came the night that scared me the most. I wish I met you earlier, he texted. I stared at the screen, pulse racing. Earlier. Before marriage. Before vows. Before responsibilities. The fantasy was intoxicating. And terrifying. Because for the first time, I wasn't just enjoying attention. I was imagining a different life. One where I felt understood. One where silence didn't suffocate me. But fantasies don't come without consequences. Every time my husband spoke kindly, guilt twisted in my stomach. Every time he looked tired from work, I felt ashamed. Because while he was building our life, I was emotionally stepping outside of it. And yet, I couldn't stop. Because what I felt wasn't lust. It was connection. And connection is harder to walk away from. 1 year passed like this. A year of hidden notifications. A year of charged eye contact. A year of emotional dependency disguised as friendship. I kept telling myself we hadn't done anything wrong. There were no hotel rooms. No secret dates. No physical betrayal. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had given someone else the part of me that belonged to my marriage. And secrets, no matter how carefully guarded, always find a way to surface. I just didn't know how soon everything would come crashing down. I always imagined that if the truth ever came out, it would be dramatic. Screaming. Accusations. Doors slamming. But the reality was worse. It was quiet. It was controlled. And it was devastating. It happened on a Sunday night. The kind of night that feels slow and ordinary. I had just finished washing the dishes. The house was calm. My husband was sitting on the couch, the TV on but muted. I remember thinking how peaceful everything looked. How normal. And how fragile normal can be. I walked into the living room, drying my hands on a towel. That's when I saw my phone on the coffee table. In front of him. My stomach dropped. He didn't look angry. He looked pale. Still. I read them, he said. 2 words. And my entire world tilted. For a second, I considered pretending not to understand. Read what? I almost asked. But I knew. The messages. The late-night conversations. The "I wish I met you earlier." My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. How long? He asked quietly. His voice wasn't loud. It was shaking. And somehow, that hurt more. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. How long has this been going on? He repeated. A year, I whispered. The word felt poisonous. His jaw tightened. A year, he repeated, like he couldn't process it. 12 months. 52 weeks. 365 days. While we ate dinner together. While we slept in the same bed. While he went to work every morning believing his wife was faithful. I never touched him, I said quickly, the words spilling out in panic. It wasn't physical. The moment I said it, I knew how weak it sounded. He let out a bitter laugh. Do you think that makes it better? I felt tears rising, but I forced myself to look at him. It just happened, I said. No, he replied firmly. It didn't just happen. You let it happen. That hit me like a slap. Because he was right. I had chosen every reply. Every late-night conversation. Every smile at the checkout counter. This wasn't an accident. It was a series of decisions. You told him things, my husband continued, his voice cracking. Things you stopped telling me. I looked down. Because that was true too. The loneliness. The frustration. The feeling of being invisible. Instead of fighting for my marriage, I had poured those emotions into someone else. Did you love him? He asked. That question broke something inside me. I had asked myself that many times. Was it love? Or was it the feeling of being understood? I don't know, I admitted through tears. He stood up abruptly, running his hands through his hair. I gave you everything I could, he said. Maybe I wasn't perfect. Maybe I was tired. But I was loyal. The word loyal echoed in my ears. Because I wasn't. Not in the way that mattered. You think because you didn't sleep with him it's not betrayal, he continued. You gave him your heart. I shook my head weakly. I was lonely, I whispered. And you think I wasn't, he shot back. That silenced me. Because I had been so focused on my own emptiness that I never considered his. Marriage isn't just about one person feeling neglected. It's about two people slowly drifting apart without realizing it. But drifting doesn't justify stepping outside. He picked up my phone again. I read the message where he said he wished he met you earlier. My breath caught. And you didn't shut it down. I couldn't deny it. Because I hadn't. In that moment months ago, I had let the fantasy breathe. You were imagining a life without me, he said, his voice breaking completely now. That was the first time I saw tears in his eyes. And it shattered me. I never meant to leave, I sobbed. But you left emotionally, he replied. And that was the truth I couldn't escape. Physical affairs destroy trust. But emotional affairs destroy foundations. Because they prove that someone else became your safe place. And I had made another man my safe place. The room felt suffocating. I felt invisible, I said through shaking breaths. I felt like we stopped seeing each other. And instead of telling me that, he replied, you told him. Silence fell between us. Heavy. Painful. Honest. He sat back down slowly, looking exhausted. Was he worth it? He asked quietly. That question crushed me. Because suddenly, the fantasy disappeared. The secret smiles. The soft messages. The emotional intensity. All of it looked small compared to the damage sitting in front of me. No, I said immediately. And I meant it. He studied my face, searching for lies. I don't know how to trust you again, he admitted. That hurt more than his anger. Because anger can fade. But broken trust lingers. I walked toward him carefully, like approaching shattered glass. I'll end it, I said. Completely. You should have ended it months ago. Another truth. Another wound. I was selfish, I whispered. Yes, he said. We both cried that night. Not just because of the messages. But because of what they represented. Distance. Neglect. Unspoken pain. He stood up finally and walked toward the bedroom. Halfway down the hallway, he stopped. Do you even want this marriage? He asked without turning around. That question forced me to confront myself. Did I? Or had I just been escaping? I thought about our early years. The laughter. The shared dreams. The nights we stayed awake planning our future. We hadn't lost love overnight. We had stopped nurturing it. Yes, I said firmly. I want this. He nodded slowly. But he didn't say anything back. The bedroom door closed gently. And that gentle click felt louder than any slammed door ever could. I sat alone in the living room for hours. Staring at the blank TV screen. Holding the phone that had become the weapon of my own destruction. For the first time in a year, I didn't check for his messages. I didn't care if he texted. All I could see was my husband's broken expression. The disappointment. The betrayal. And the painful realization that emotional lines, once crossed, leave scars. That night, I understood something clearly. I hadn't just risked my marriage. I had wounded the one person who trusted me the most. And now, I didn't know if love alone would be enough to fix what I had broken. The morning after everything fell apart felt unfamiliar. The house looked the same. The walls hadn't moved. The furniture hadn't changed. But something between us had. It was fragile now. Delicate. Like glass that had been cracked but not completely shattered. My husband was already awake when I walked into the kitchen. He stood by the window, holding his coffee, staring outside like he was searching for answers in the sky. We didn't speak at first. Because sometimes silence isn't cold. Sometimes it's processing. I'm going to the supermarket, I said softly. He didn't react immediately. Then he nodded once. That nod carried weight. It wasn't permission. It was awareness. He knew why I was going. And so did I. The drive there felt heavier than it ever had before. For a year, that place had felt like a small escape. Now it felt like a courtroom. When I walked inside, everything looked the same: bright lights, neat aisles, soft background music. But I wasn't the same woman who had walked in here months ago searching for a smile. I found him at the checkout counter. When he saw me, his expression softened immediately. But the moment he noticed my swollen eyes, his smile faded. What happened? He asked quietly. My throat tightened. My husband knows. He froze. For a brief second, the world between us felt suspended. How? He asked. He read everything. The silence that followed was different from any silence we had shared before. This one carried consequence. Guilt. Reality. I never wanted to hurt you, he said carefully. I shook my head. It's not about that. It wasn't about who meant harm. It was about what harm had been done. For the first time, I looked at him without romantic softness clouding my judgment. He was kind. Attentive. Understanding. But he wasn't my husband. He wasn't the man I had built a life with. I let this go too far, I admitted. He didn't argue. Because we both knew it was true. There was no dramatic confession. No desperate request to run away together. Real life isn't built on cinematic moments. It's built on consequences. If things were different, he started to say. But I gently stopped him. They're not. That was the hardest truth. We can romanticize what if forever. But what is demands courage. I can't keep doing this, I continued, my voice shaking. Even if nothing physical happened, emotionally, it did. And that matters. He looked down, nodding slowly. I think I knew this day would come, he admitted. His honesty made it harder. Because there was no villain here. Just two people who crossed lines slowly. I don't regret meeting you, I said quietly. You reminded me what it feels like to be seen. He looked up at me. And you reminded me that connection is powerful, he replied. We stood there, not touching. Not reaching. Just accepting. I have to choose my marriage, I said finally. The words felt heavy. But they also felt right. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with calm acceptance. I hope he realizes what he has, he said softly. That sentence broke me a little. Because despite everything, there was no bitterness in him. Just sadness. I took a step back. This is goodbye. No dramatic hug. No tears in public. Just a quiet ending to something that should never have grown so strong. As I walked out of the supermarket for the last time, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. Grief for the emotional connection I was leaving behind. Relief for choosing clarity over confusion. When I reached home, my husband was sitting at the dining table. Waiting. I placed my phone on the table between us. I ended it, I said. He searched my face for hesitation. There wasn't any. I deleted his number, I continued. Blocked it. I won't go back there again. He exhaled slowly, like he had been holding his breath for days. Why? He asked quietly. The question surprised me. Why what? Why choose this? Because he needed to hear it. Because words matter. Because I don't want a fantasy, I said honestly. I want something real. And real takes work. He looked down at his hands. I know I wasn't present, he admitted. I got lost in responsibilities. In work. I thought providing was enough. Tears filled my eyes again. I stopped telling you how I felt, I said. I let resentment grow instead of fighting for us. For the first time in a long time, we weren't accusing. We were owning. And ownership is the beginning of repair. I can't promise I'll trust you immediately, he said. I don't expect you to. Trust isn't rebuilt with words. It's rebuilt with consistency. I'm willing to work for it, I told him. And I meant every syllable. Marriage isn't sustained by butterflies. It's sustained by choice. Daily choice. Even when it's hard. Even when temptation exists. Even when loneliness creeps in. He reached across the table slowly. Not passionately. Not dramatically. Just gently. And placed his hand over mine. It wasn't a grand romantic gesture. But it was real. We start over, he said quietly. Not from the beginning. But from honesty. That night, we talked longer than we had in years. About what went wrong. About what we missed in each other. About how easy it is to drift when no one is intentionally steering the relationship. Healing wouldn't happen overnight. There would be uncomfortable days. Moments of doubt. Flashbacks of messages. But we had chosen to try. And that mattered. Weeks later, I drove past the supermarket once. Not to go inside. Just passing by. For a brief second, memories tried to pull at me. The smiles. The late-night messages. The feeling of being desired. But then I looked at my wedding ring. And I understood something deeply. Attraction is easy. Connection can feel magical. But commitment is sacred. And sacred things deserve protection. I didn't fall for a supermarket worker. I fell into emotional vulnerability when my marriage felt fragile. But instead of running from the damage, I chose to repair it. Because love isn't just about how someone makes you feel. It's about who you choose when feelings get complicated. And that choice, that final, painful, honest choice, defined me more than any secret ever could. Red Heart Hash.